Hi there, I'm Anne Carroll. As a longtime engagement consultant, I developed this course to explore more deeply how to design engagement processes that intentionally and successfully engage the full spectrum of stakeholders. Grounded in real cases and supported with a 50-page workbook, guidance, and peer learning, the course prepares you to design robust, inclusive, and successful engagements that meet unique project and stakeholder needs. We begin as a whole group getting to know each other and talking a little bit about the course, and then jump right into some awareness exercises about seeing and hearing diversity. Because this course frames all forms of stakeholder diversity, age, gender, race, education, language, income, learning style, and so on, everyone can find themselves in this exercise, which helps you understand why learning how to engage the full spectrum is relevant to you. In the next awareness exercise, I have you listen to snippets from audio interviews I've done in response to the simple question, tell me about a time you were part of some public process and didn't feel welcomed or heard. Here's a segment of one of them. I asked people to just listen and imagine.
I've also been in that place where I don't maybe understand the issue very clearly, so I'm reluctant to speak. And it's frustrating because I know just because I'm quiet doesn't mean I don't have anything to contribute. I've been in a place where I've been silent because I don't feel competent enough to address the issue. But it doesn't mean I don't have anything important to contribute. If I were given the opportunity, I would.
For the rest of the morning, I make sure you're sufficiently grounded in the theory of design so you have that to fall back on, because every engagement project is different and the stakeholders and process designs are unique. Then we begin designing. For the first of the 3 progressively complex cases, your whole group works through the critical steps of the design process. You'll learn all about that in the course. And then you do your first stakeholder identification and analysis exercise. All of this is pretty messy in the beginning, but also a ton of fun as you figure out together what this means and why it matters, and start thinking about how it applies to your own projects. Then you work in teams using supporting materials in the workbook to actually develop the design for that case, focusing on the most challenging stakeholders, those you haven't necessarily had much success with in the past or are unique to that case. I help each team think carefully about what you're trying to accomplish, the barriers and how to overcome them, the best tools and techniques, and how to make it work in the real world. Then teams debrief and discuss key learnings. Because this complex work requires practice, we repeat this sequence with 2 more increasingly messy and complex cases, always working together to ensure each of you is successful and builds tremendous capacity to move forward. After the cases, during the afternoon of the second day, we dig into how to move from design to implementation. We walk through creating a stakeholder engagement plan and then spend quite some time talking about how to select the right tools and techniques because they have to fit your design, stakeholder group, and where you are in the project. We finish up the course with a solid section on monitoring, evaluating, and redesigning during the implementation, because you will have to change the wings while you're flying the plane, and it's good to learn more about that before you actually have to do it. We close with reflections and learnings, and then you're done. Ready and now much more able to design meaningful engagement projects that successfully reach out to and hear from the full spectrum of stakeholders for that project. Thanks for your interest in this course, and please get in touch if you have any questions.
My father doesn't go to school conferences because they're always scheduled during the time when he'll be at work. And if he does go, he just feels like he'll be a burden on the teachers because of the language barrier. He doesn't speak English fluently, and when he goes, it's hard to find translators. And the translators that are there, some of them, they have language barriers too, and they can't always translate correctly. So then my father just sits there and stares at the teacher with this blank look in his eyes. He doesn't know how to respond or what questions to ask or what to say. And it's really hard because he once was a teacher in Laos.
One other time we had another meeting where people are supposed to come forward and address a Hmong cultural issue. There was a forum put out by the Hmong Bar Association about the Hmong marriage bill, and there was a lot of publicity about it, and even a lot of people were angry about it, and yet we had about 50 to about 75 people at most. And once they got there, I think they had the opportunity to listen, but I think there was something missing about that, is that it was a very traditional forum in which you have panel speakers and then people from the community spoke. But I think in that situation where there's a lot of people angry about it, you need to have a way where people can gather in smaller group and everyone's voice can be heard. And I think that was in that meeting it was really good that it got some people out, but once you got there, the structure didn't allow for everyone's voices to be heard. So this particular meeting was a good beginning, and yet, and once people got there, people were frustrated that their voices weren't heard.
After we moved into our new house, all the neighbors in the neighborhood were invited to a little, neighbor gathering meeting, but my father didn't go because he felt his opinions wouldn't matter. In the end, it's always the white people whose opinions are going to make a difference. So, he didn't go because there was no mentioning of there being a translator there. So he felt it was just better if he let the people that really mattered do their job.
I was in a high school, one of our high schools for my child, and they have you're in the cafeteria or the gym, and these tables are set up. So each teacher, so if you have chemistry and they have science, 10th grade, and they're all sitting down, and then there's this line, and you're standing in this line, and everybody's standing and talking, so the noise level is extremely high. So you get up there and it's your turn, and you just sort of step up and you give your name. They pull out this paper and they say, oh, this is what your child is doing, and everybody can hear your conversation. And so the person before me was a Hmong, and she had an interpreter with her. So she steps up and she gives her name, and the teacher says, oh yeah, he's not doing very well. And the parent, through the interpreter, says, why not? And the teacher says, well, because he's never there. And you need to make sure that he comes to school. So the interpreter interpreted back. So she said, well, how many days did he miss? And through the interpreter, and the teacher comes back and says, oh, I don't have that information. You have to go to the office and get that. But he's not doing very well. The parent then says, well, what is it that you're doing to teach him? And the teacher comes back with, well, I can't very well teach him if he's not there. And she says, but you've never called me. And he says, well, that's not my responsibility. That's the office. And she says, well, where can I go and find this out? He says, well, You have to go to a counselor. And finally, the interpreter is frustrated. This teacher's totally talking down. And finally I said, well, you know, how many days has the child missed? And you should have that information. And he looks and he says, X number of days. And I said, and you can also tell this parent, when that child is there, is he passing? What work is he doing? And do you have any of his work to show her? And he says, well, that's what's wrong with you people.